2, 1, 2. We didn't do no sound checks, guys. Sound check. Sound check. Got this engineer on.
Yeah,
Where's our sound checks?
I know it's working. I was here.
Yeah, okay. We good? Y'all hear me good?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
I'm not hearing it in my head.
Don't hear yours?
Nope.
1, 2, 1, 2. Okay.
Y'all got me plugged in right?
Sure, if you didn't hear you, I hear you.
Oh, I don't hear myself. This is why we supposed to do the checks. We lacking today. I'm not in?
You're in. I just forgot that you switched your headphone. I can hear you. I don't know how you can't
No,
hear.
I can't hear myself.
I hear you, though.
Give me another one. Give me one that's not used. Anyway, welcome everybody to One Night. One Night. We are here. Share. Okay. Little feedback. All right. Ooh, what's up with this feedback, y'all? Okay. We here. All right. Crack the mics for you all. Let me hear you guys.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
I don't know. We got a lot of feedback. Ooh, this is really vicious right now. And I was cracking up. Told Money Mike is here, so on the wheels and steels. He said change headphones, jacks, and poor Stan didn't.
Yeah, you caught me out there a little bit.
So I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Can we?
Here, let's get this done. Is that better? I think that's a little better. So yeah, welcome everybody to the One Night podcast. It's good to see you all. I'm not sure why we're getting all this back beep beep and all those sounds, but that's technology. I try to keep my head still. Maybe it's that.
Yeah, maybe.
Turn.
Yeah.
Is back and forth.
Well, Mike's getting it together.
Yeah, he's working it out. Is it better now?
Sounds better.
Okay. So we are here in the building. Still a little feedback, but it might be too up. I think it's too up. A little feedback, but we're here in the building. Please share. Like our pages as well, and welcome again to the One Night podcast. So we're going to jump into our week, but Stan is here.
Yes, I'm in the house.
Money Mike is here.
Yeah.
Our engineer extraordinaire. Engineer extraordinaire. You like that, Mike? All right, so just quick updates for me. Then we'll jump into Money Mike, and then we'll go to Stan, and then we'll just talk to you all. So for me, community leadership doesn't stop there. There's always some advising, connecting, and advocating to do. So that's how my week is normally, just busy, busy, busy. The Homes ISIS Coalition membership is increasing, as well as with more initiatives besides the regular PPE, food distribution, and voter registration drives. We do have a small tutoring program for young children that we have been doing this for several months, that will hopefully be expanding. So we have like either retired teachers, some teachers that are still currently teaching, and we're also working with the Isaac Center to try to start back the after-school program.
It's great.
In the fall. Won't be as full and robust as it was because of funding, but we're working on getting that done. So we're looking at like 25 to 30 kids. It's not a lot, but it beats a blank because we were at 0 for a few years. So that's a good thing. Give us some for that.
Yes.
I want to say a shout out to East Lake Tenant Union.
Yes.
Out there in the Windy City of Chicago. They're doing some grand work out there and trying to keep public housing public, although their stock has really been privatized greatly, but they're still out there fighting, and we're looking forward to bringing them on the show eventually. So just wanted to highlight them today, and if they have a page, like their page, or friend them or something like that, they're really out there hardcore doing the work, and it's really sad to see that throughout this country privatization red and all that's just taking place.
Mm-hmm.
I received a campaign mailer in the mail the other day. I don't know
Carolyn
if anybody
Maloney.
can see it.
Yes.
But I'm pictured on it for Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, so I was kind of excited like that. I'm like, ooh, to see myself on her mailer. So that was a nice surprise, and also validates my leadership.
Absolutely.
In the community. As many may be aware of the redistricting, so due to the census, we were about 87 people short, and that was part of one of the reasons why Census 2020 was so important. And the fact that we were short, we didn't go over the threshold to complete it where we needed to complete it at, so we were slated to lose congressional seats. So Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney and her colleague, or actually I won't say his name, but her colleague and her are going head to head. So that's really unfortunate, because they originally had already endorsed each other.
Right.
So now, because of the redistricting, her district's changed some, and she's lost Brooklyn and Queens. We did a lot of work with her, of course. You stand, myself, Astoria Houses. We've been out there with her. So both of them are working, and her and her opponent are working in new territory. She was out there. Shout out to Fulton Houses. She was at their family day yesterday. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney don't play. Give us some. She was out there in Fulton Houses yesterday. So I seen those pictures. I was like, she get around. But she's a busy bee, busy congresswoman. I give her much respect, and I loved all the work I've done with her throughout the years. I've been doing work with her since 2015, so I can attest to her hard work,
right?
And definitely her dedication and support to public housing residents. She does stand with us. On Wednesday, it sounds like I'm just all Congressman Maloney today. On Wednesday, I attended a gun violence town hall hosted by Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. The focus was on the topic at hand, as well as domestic violence, which needs an ongoing conversation. It is not gender exclusive.
Right.
It does end with lives never being the same, from either just the mental trauma, incarceration, and even death. Conflict resolution is key, and we must instill in our family and friends that love doesn't hurt. We also need a curriculum of can't even get it out, conflict resolution.
Yes.
We need that in our junior high and high schools, because there was just in Manhattan, a 14-year-old stabbed to death at the train. So train station by another young teen, to my understanding. This was, I believe, last night. Yesterday evening or something like that. But that's unfortunate, that we can't argue or we can't disagree without the violence. And I'm not by all means judging anybody, but when you think about it, it's one family that has to bury a family, and then there's one family that's fighting for their child's freedom.
Right.
So
everybody loses.
Everybody loses. Everybody hurts. The Social Justice Committee, which I co-chair of Community Board 8, next meeting we will have on July 25th at 6:30. Our topic will be on domestic violence, a much-needed dialogue. So not sure if we're going to have a speaker, but we definitely want to have some conversation, and we probably can do, if we don't have a speaker, we may have a follow-up down the road. But this is something that really needs to be discussed, and it's not just because of one death here and there. This is consistently happening. We can't rally around this situation, give it a month of awareness when lives are being destroyed. This has to be an ongoing conversation, giving women and men the tools to break the cycle. Children are without one of both parents when this happens. Either somebody, like I said, gets killed, or a parent goes to jail. In the recent case with Miss Asia Johnson that lost her life, both parents, the child, the 3-month-old baby is without both parents. One is gone, and the father is going to be most likely convicted and sentenced to time. And she was 20, I think he's about 22. They were babies. So we just have to work on, working on this, and this is a community issue. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, doesn't matter your ethnicity, your gender, how you identify yourself. It doesn't matter your religion. It happens. It doesn't matter in your neighborhood. I never forget somebody said, "Oh wow, this was so close to home." It happens.
Right.
It shouldn't be that it's so close to home. It's happening, and it shouldn't happen anywhere.
Absolutely.
So we really, have to work on getting this resolved and getting these issues taken care of, rather as the counseling for the aggressor, the counseling for the victim.
Sure.
As a domestic violence survivor myself, I always say I have zero respect for men that disrespect women, and rather it is another woman, rather it is verbal, or however it is, physical, verbal. I just don't have the respect for them, because as a person that experienced it, I understand it, and I know the signs. And when sometimes people are disrespectful or verbally aggressive to women, or vice versa, but I'm speaking for me as a woman, those are signs. Those could propel into that. So it really, I just don't have no respect for people like that. So that was my week. That was my commentary. Money Mike, shoot away.
Smooth Money Mike.
Talk to us.
I ain't go as well. First
Oh, thank you. Oh, is that clap for you?
No, that was for you.
You don't have on no hat, y'all.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him. I
Look
saw
at
him.
him.
Like Mike didn't have to have. I didn't know.
Smooth.
Didn't know he was
You always
even more
covering
smooth.
up.
Got the little waves. Got the little waves going on.
No, I don't
He got that good hair in his family. He got that good hair.
Yeah, I couldn't find my red hat. I lost it.
That's what it is? No hair?
I've been lost my red hat though.
Okay.
But my week, like everybody know, my week went by smooth. And, 4th of July just passed.
Right.
Well, I always say, I told people happy still a slave day, 'cause we were still slaves for the time. So
Woke.
Happy still a save day.
happy still a slave day.
Frederick Douglass said it best.
But, yes, but besides, having a good time and barbecue on that day, also of course, I'm still building studios in schools.
Nice.
That's great.
Build another one in the Bronx. I mean, we ain't finished. They don't have a equipment yet, but we're gonna do that. And got another one in the Bronx. We got another one in East New York. We got some more studios to keep building.
Okay. Good
That's
work.
great. That's great.
That's all I'm doing. Building studios.
Awesome.
Building studios.
And for y'all who may not know, Mike is from Ravenswood and came on to this platform about a few years ago and was not building studios, was not doing any of this stuff. And a year later, he's building studios, our engineer in this studio here. So it's good to see. It's good to see the growth.
And always like to introduce people.
Yeah, we can see.
But remember, he's a college graduate.
Right. Also,
right?
Yep.
And he's an actor. Mm-hmm. Come on, you're going to go down his resume.
Right, well,
Give it up.
I didn't have all the items in front of me, but man of many talents.
Yes,
here.
he is. Yes, he is. And we're very happy to have him with us and doing the work with him. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my week was pretty quiet, not smooth as Mike's. We did have the holiday and all.
Nobody
but
else.
I'm excited. We just had a meeting today
Okay.
with Rock, who's my co-founder and sometimes host when he has time. And I'm excited about where the direction of
One of the
Night.
co-founders.
One of the co-founders. All three of us are
Right.
co-founders, and
Or
he's
four
the
of
fourth.
us.
All
Yeah.
four. We all did this together. And I'm excited about where the platform is going. So for those who may not know, I'm no longer with the Justice for All Coalition. I'm not the lead organizer there. So a lot of the work that I was doing there for the past 5 years, we're going to be doing here. And I'm excited about that because previous to that, we would have our podcast.
Right.
Folks would come on and they would have issues and complaints. And sometimes you could follow up, sometimes you couldn't. We did the best we could. But now we're going to have a lot more time to do that and really show what people are really dealing with. Beyond just the podcast on Sundays, to really get out into the community and let people see, the drama and the horror and the disrespect that people face in management offices. The lack of repairs that are being done.
Right.
And we're going to be focusing really a lot on the RAD developments, because we want to change the narrative. As y'all know, the mayor has sold y'all out. The city council sold you out. DSA with Julia Salazar sold you out.
The former mayor.
The former mayor. And all the elected officials. City council, if I haven't mentioned them, voted, in favor of the blueprint. So our message has to get out as fast as possible, and quickly as possible. And still to this day, a lot of NYCHA residents don't know what the blueprint's about, don't know what RAD's about. And they're moving with lightning speed, in terms of trying to ram this down our throat. So the importance of this platform is to get this message out. A lot of times we don't often come to the meetings. I've had several meetings. Some of them are big, some of them are not so big. It's a challenge to get residents to come out. But we have a platform where we can share the information and then go to meetings and stream that meeting. If there's 30 or 40 people in the meeting, but another 300-400 people watch it online, then the information gets out. So I'm excited. We're going to be working with Just Fix. PSL, I think, will be on board as well, which is Party for Socialist Liberation.
Shout out to them.
And we're going to really bring this message with community meetings. We got a lot in store.
Homes Eyes Coalition,
Homes Eyes
which I'm a co-founder of.
Exactly.
We'll be doing some work with One Night.
Right. So we're gonna expand, and really showcase the work of other activists, because this work is difficult. A lot of times we work in this and nobody sees the struggle of it, or how hard it is, or sometimes how rewarding it is when you get somebody's apartment done. So we want to show y'all all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the disrespect, the frustrations of residents, the actual conditions of their homes. A picture speaks 1,000 words. We can say it as much as we want here, but when you see it, you're going to know really what it is. And it's important that we get this message out so we can change the narrative and let folks know the blueprint is not going to be no better than RAD, and it's going to be another Band-Aid over a big gaping wound that does not serve NYCHA residents well at all. So that's what we're focusing on. I'm excited. We got some developments we're going to be going to this week, Saundrea and I. Won't mention it now. We'll save it for later, but there are developments that have been privatized, and we've spoken to some residents, and they're not happy at all, and they're willing to come on and share their story and tell the world exactly what it is. So we're growing. We're getting bigger and more effective and more powerful, and we're going to bring that message to our people.
Stay tuned. There's some great information coming out soon. Maybe not today, but soon, because what we're doing here at One Night. So I just want to ask you, Stan, and you could probably tell, because I'm gonna ask you a question, but I'm gonna answer it myself, and I want you to answer it. So when you go to a development and just see the decay, the horror of it, how do you feel? Pause. So when I was campaigning and canvassing, I was in a few different developments, and I literally was in tears leaving. I wasn't in people's house, but just being in the buildings, doors not locked, you could just walk in. It really, bothered me. It really had my eyes filled with water. I was literally like crying.
Yeah.
So how does it make you feel when you go out to help residents and see the conditions? Like, I'm trying to get the human side of you as a man.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see? What do you feel?
I mean, first, sometimes you feel a little hopeless, because you know that this person's coming to you and they need the help.
Right.
And in many cases, we are able to help and get the repairs done. We send an email out and things happen. Sometimes things don't happen, and so you feel the frustration of that resident, and you wonder how can they deal with it, and then you feel it too,
Right.
So then when I've gone down to management office, they're not just disrespecting the resident, they're disrespecting me too, and you can't be here and you can't do this, you can't do that, and it's just anger and frustration, so I know how tough it is if I'm not living it nice as I don't now,
Right.
but just being around it, the anger and the frustration that you feel. Now imagine that as you have yourself, and you got to live there too, and then you got to have the strength and energy to actually fight. And so I think that any NYCHA resident that's doing this fight, oh, you guys are heroes, because how can you live like that and still find the energy to fight? I find that to be amazing, because the fight is difficult, and we're fighting somebody that's really criminal and don't care nothing about any of us. And we don't care if we die or people literally die in their apartments. So you fighting against someone like that, it's just the frustration. It's just overwhelming.
I would have to say, take a hat off, although I don't have one. You're a hero too, because we have residents, community leaders, organizers, and so forth, like yourself, that although you grew up in NYCHA, you're not there anymore, and you're back,
Right.
Helping. So you're just as much as a hero as we are. So
Sure.
give him some. So let me ask you this, since I don't know why I mentioned these questions today. I don't have nothing written down; they're just popping in my head. So I'll ask you, and then I'll talk about my own place. So I'm gonna ask you a question, then I'll talk about where I grew up at. So you grew up at Lafayette Gardens,
Lafayette
correct?
Gardens.
Have you been back there since throughout the years, and do you see what's the differences from growing up to now?
Well, I can tell you, the last time I was in Lafayette Gardens, I went a few times, was Old Timers Day, and unfortunately, gunshots rang out, and people got, I don't think anybody got shot, but the event came to an immediate end, so I was sad to see that. But just yesterday, riding by Lafayette Gardens, and I saw something I never thought I would ever see. So you see a park full of white people, and they had a DJ out there. And I'm like, this is what we used to do years ago in Lafayette Gardens myself, and I'm riding by now, and there was not a black person in the park. And they had a DJ, like they're doing a block party across the street from Lafayette Gardens. I'm like, so has the neighborhood changed that much? It's just been gentrified to the point that it's beyond recognition. I never thought I would see something like that.
So they wasn't in the development; they were on the other side.
So Lafayette Gardens is here. Across the street is on 270 Park, which is right across the street.
Okay.
This is where all the basketball tournaments are played. This is where we communicated. This is the park of our projects. Wow. And we all would play handball there, softball, riding swings, everything else is going on. That's where we met.
Wow.
The big games happening. And now to go by that park and see not a single black person, not one. And it was jarring to see that. It really showed me, how they build all around us, right? They build everywhere, and all these buildings go up, but the conditions of those in Lafayette Gardens have not changed. If not, they're worse.
Wow.
So how's all this wealth happening, but then we still surrounded by wealth,
Exactly.
but we're in poverty.
Right. Wow. So I grew up in McKinley houses in the South Bronx,
Right,
South Bronx. Yeah. So I grew up over there, and I go around there every now and then. I also went around there to assist some residents, and it's really difficult to be around there. My mother passed away in 2014, so it's like no reason like to visit like my mom anymore. But I still have friends and stuff over there, but just to see the decay, the garbage all over the place at a particular time. I don't know if it's still like that, but I had the flag that they had garbage all outside. I mean, they had flies in the hallways, the elevators. It just looks like the same old elevators. The floors look like the same old floors I grew up in. It's just really, bad. And just to know that, that was a place where I grew up, where I thrived at. I went to public school 140, junior high school 120, and Jane Addams. I didn't leave the community.
Right.
I stayed right there and was educated there and graduated on time at 17. But just to see the area, and then the management is merged, so you have Forest houses and you have McKinley houses there across the street. Forest houses, that's where Diamond D is from. Shout out to him. Butter and a couple other people, I don't want to call out everybody's name, but, it was just to see that Forest Houses is taken care of a little better than McKinley's, but you have the
Right.
same management. I have a problem with that. That's the
Right.
same thing we're experiencing where I'm at now, Holmes and Isaac houses. Isaac's is upkept a little better than Holmes, but we have the same property manager.
Right.
There's a problem with that.
Right,
And I
right.
believe I mentioned it last week. It's definitely a problem with that. I mean, you cannot be the property management for two developments that share the same campus,
Right.
and one has the amenities over the other, and one is a little better than the other. That's literally impossible.
It makes no sense.
Right, but what does that tell you? But I'm gonna turn to Money
I
Mike.
was gonna ask some questions.
I'm gonna turn to him first.
You can't say that. I'm gonna ask you some
Yeah,
questions too,
yeah.
Mike. You ain't gonna slide by
So
today.
you out in Ravenswood, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us about the conditions there. What's going on in Ravenswood?
To be honest, what made me angry with Ravenswood lately is that they took the garbage cans away. I mean, they said it was because of the squirrels, but it's much dirtier.
They took the garbage cans away. So
Yeah, you know the garbage cans that be in front of the buildings
Right.
or behind the building.
Wow.
They took the garbage cans away.
So where they put the garbage now?
People just put them in the same spot just without the can, or
Oh,
That's helping
man.
the rat infestation,
yes,
especially if they don't have good bags. Go ahead.
yes, it got holes already in the dirt, so you already know them.
Burrows, the rat burrows.
Wow.
They're already there. And, it be stinking, of course, and we across the street from the sanitation department, so it's not like it's helping it.
Oh my, yeah. Wow. Wow.
So and the housing lady in our building, she get mad. I mean, she do be cleaning. She cleans,
Right.
and I understand because I used to do maintenance myself. So I know even if you clean it, then somebody just come and do something right there, and then management want to come to and they just gonna be like, oh, you ain't do nothing all day, even though you just busting your behind all day.
Right, right.
They not gonna see that because they don't care. They just be in the office all day. But right. So when people just from the building have to come downstairs, and especially people on the first floor,
Right,
people,
right.
if they don't have a an incinerator chute on the first, a compactor chute on the first,
Right,
so
right.
they would have to go to the back of the building,
Wow.
the front of the building, and take their trash out. Unless they want to go,
I don't remember.
to the second floor, throw down the incinerator. But
That's normal.
I don't
'Cause I think we had one on the
lived
first
on the first floor in my development.
You had one, right?
I had one on the
Yeah,
first floor. So
compact.
what do
I
you mean
think we
it's not
did
one on the
too.
first floor? There's-
Right,
because the
Tanya's
compactor-
on Facebook. Didn't we have a compact on the first floor? I don't remember. We were in the same building. I don't remember.
because the
Please tell
compactor
me.
is in the
think we did.
basically when you go towards the back door, it's the first floor, and the compactor is right there next door to the back
Right,
door.
right.
So where you would throw the garbage out in the chute,
The shoot, right?
it won't actually make it because the compactor is literally behind that wall on the first floor.
That's ridiculous. That's all I can say to that.
Those on the first floor will have to. They expect them to take them. You know where the trucks come and pick up the garbage at in that garbage bin that's in the
Right, right.
They probably expect them to go all the way over there.
What we call that? I don't want to mess it up because that's not the compact. That's
That's the incinerator, the compactor
Right.
chute.
Right.
the
I
shoot,
call
the
it
shoot, the
yeah.
shoot, right? Because the room, because my ex-husband was a caretaker, so I know he used to have to pull the garbage from the compactor.
Yeah.
So, what we call that? The shoot, right? Just
Yeah.
to put the garbage chute.
Right,
Okay,
right.
all right, okay. I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
Right, so
That's,
I thought we had one on the first floor.
I had one of mine.
McKinley's.
I don't understand how that wasn't happening.
I had one on the first floor. So those on the first floor will have to figure out how they're gonna throw their garbage out. Basically.
Wow. Well, I want to give Mike. I think your involvement is important. I know as a community organizer, it was very difficult to get young men to be involved in this movement. You know, you go to a lot of meetings. It's predominantly senior citizens. At least in my experience, the meetings I've held, a lot of senior citizens, mostly women. Not too many men and not too many young people. You know, so when Mike walked in the doors at Justice for All, it was like, wow. You know, this is what we need more of. You know, because a lot of the meetings don't have young men in it, you know. So I commend you, Mike, for being that, and anyone watching the show.
One for resident council,
Yeah,
right?
and we need to get them to do that. That's next on our platform, you know. But we gotta get more people involved. You know,
Yeah.
it can't be the same small group, you know, because this problem that we're facing. I'm not saying we're losing, but I will say that we got to step it up, you know, because we're dealing with somebody that's really trying to shove this down our throats, you know, and they're counting on low turnout at meetings. they're counting on information not getting around. They're counting on people being uninformed. And so
conquer.
while they do what they do,
Yep.
So it's really, really important. Not just going to meetings in your development. We got to get to the point where we could travel. Like if Saundrea is having a meeting at Holmes Isaacs, we should be able to send 10, 15, 20 people to that meeting to make it appear and be what it's supposed to be, because the fight is on.
Supporting one another.
The fight is on. If we don't fight now, won't be much left to fight for. So we do really got to step it up as a movement.
I remember in the past we did a big town hall and Donnelly was scheduled to speak, but Stan was there and we had Stan to speak as well, right off the cuff. And when someone really knows their stuff, like as ministry, they tell us to always be ready. Stan was ready. When he brought him up to speak, he just flew like, with comfortability and knowledge, and it was really good. Sure. I think Charlene Nimmons was there too.
Right, I remember that. Right, sure.
We had a huge, right?
Yeah, it was a big meeting.
Huge turnout. We had to open up the full room. Like it had to be well over 100 plus people in there. Very huge turnout. But and that's what we're used to doing over there when we do get cracking and getting it done.
Right.
And that's what we need to continue to do, and just involve the people and let them know what's going on. Let me just shout out a few people. There is no comments, but shout out to in the room, East Lake Tenant Union. Carolyn Felder said hello. Everyone, how are you, dear? Wagner Houses. So we got Wagner Houses in the building. Tanya Bryant is in the building. Well, we grew up together. Audrey Churchill is watching.
Hey, Audrey.
Teresa Reese is watching as well. And I just was looking at it through my phone. I must say, Mike has the camera really. Although we started out a little sketchy, you really have this good. My hair's not in the way. You really did a good job today. Like, yes, give yourself some. No, I'm looking at the visual because I always look back at the show.
That's our producer.
I always look back at the show and give our critiques and be fussing. But you really, even though we started off without a sound check, you really had this hooked up. Look at this. This looks
Mike
good.
Is very
you did a really good job today. Like I don't even, when I'm moving, I'm not going into your shot.
Right.
So the camera evidently, I don't know if it's up. Maybe is it up more today or something? Huh? Oh, see? This guy. What?
Mike's getting better by the day.
Yes, it looks good. No, it really does. Look at this. Well, you can see because you can see there. I'm not in your shot.
Right, no.
I think a lot of times I'm in your shot. Not as his fault, but we're getting better. So give you some. Give you some again. Give you some again. Yeah. But yeah. So we got Congress races coming up, and we got the Senate races coming up.
Yeah. And
I hope you all are watching or vetting your candidates, know who to vote for. Look and see if your actual congressperson incumbent has another incumbent running, because with the redistricting there has been some changing.
Right.
I was looking online because every now and then I like to Google myself. And so much that comes up from my social media to, different articles and things like that. So I just like to see what's what. And I actually, when I testified at the Independent Redistricting Commission, IRC, my actual testimony was up there.
Right,
my written
right.
testimony. So I didn't see that recently. So I just want to see what's the little updates of anything. I don't do an extensive search because I go back some years of stuff, but just every now and then. But that popped up yesterday, and I was like, oh, okay. And then it just made me think about what we're going through because
Right.
of, that's why our June 28th primary didn't have everybody in it.
Right.
That's why people are able to work the polls, early voting for the primary, right, in June.
Right.
So they had the early voting, then they had June 28th. Now they have the primary in August, and the early voting in the
Right.
regular primaries. That's 4 times. Then they have the general, so there's like 6 times. And then in the 68 we had this year special election as well. So some people are getting to work the polls a little more. So I guess that's good for them.
Right. But it just it's hard enough to get people to vote, right? And then you have the confusion,
Right.
That this is causing, and like you mentioned, Callum Maloney running against Nadler, and it's just it turns people off, and so we wonder why democracy is not working and what's happening. Why do we get the leaders that we get? When you look at the way the system's set up, first of all, as independents, as we talk about all the time, you can't run in the primary. So there's a whole group of people that don't even get a chance. You don't even get to hear them. So if you're an independent and you're not getting covered by the media, you remember how Myra and them would walk around? They got the cameras with them everywhere they go. The independent,
Roger Flores,
right.
What's her name?
Right.
Rojas.
People like who ran for independence, they didn't get that kind of coverage, you know. And in all reality, they were the ones, in my opinion, who had NYCHA's best interests at heart. You know,
true.
You look at
both of them.
You look at Eric. You know, a lot of our folks voted for Eric, and you know, Eric's for privatization. You know, so the education of NYCHA residents has to become greater to know exactly, did your city council person vote for this? Did your state assembly person vote for this?
Right.
Did your resident council president?
And it's out there.
Right.
And it's out there. This is public information.
Right.
It's not a secret. You know, you can find out.
So we're gonna hopefully, what we're gonna do here is bring that type of education, you know, because without that, what they really count on, again, is if you don't vote, what they've shown you is that we can have a march, we can demonstrate, we can have a platform such as this and everything such as that. But if they feel you're not going to vote, then they're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, it ain't in your best interest because they believe that NYCHA residents don't vote. They believe that NYCHA residents will not donate to campaigns. You know, so in the end of the day, you know, when you really get right down to it, they're telling you to your face, you know, we really don't really care about you. Right? You don't value it at all.
Don't value. And they're
give
saying they don't need your vote.
Right.
When in actuality, they do.
Right. They get you.
They do.
But you get them in, and this is a perfect case of how you get them in and they forget you. You know, and I say from the top, from the mayor on down to various others, you know, have shown their true colors. You know, so we gotta be the change we want to be. You know, so that's why I commend Saundrea for running. You know, as a NYCHA resident. Other NYCHA residents, we have to do it because nobody knows what you go do more than you, right? And so you got to be the voice. And if we will all come together, we can actually sway elections. So one of the things we're going to be doing with One NYCHA is voter registration. To say, okay, we're talking about the problem, but let's register people to vote.
Yeah.
And then that will scare the daylights out of these elected officials because in the end of the day, a couple of thousand votes swings an election. It makes all the difference in the world. Way more than you might think.
Yeah. If you do the numbers, you know, you really crunch the numbers, you look at the totals, and it's like, wow. You know, even especially in the primaries, right? Because that's when it's everything is decided.
Right.
You know, that Democrat, that Republican, and then the independent comes in if there is one. But it's really something to really consider. We have to come out in the primaries. We really have to come out full force and make your voice heard, you know. And then, as I said last week, even with the primary, say your particular candidate doesn't get in, and we take the governor, for example, because the other ones are a little different. There's still, you know, Democrats are going to probably stay with the assemblyman that's there. They're not going to really be butthurt. They'll come out and vote. And we are a democratic society, a society of more Democrats in the state, like California is as well. But, you know, there's an opportunity if you are a Democrat, if you stay home, that a Republican can get in for the governorship. And I know, like I said before, and I'm not stumping for her at all. I know some people are not happy with her. But, you know, you have to really weigh out everything unless there's an independent that everybody can get behind and, you know, that don't want to be with her. But then you got to do the math. Me voting for this independent, what is it going to do? Is it going to fracture the party and still get a Republican? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a lot of things to do. But, you know, we definitely need to give and put our eyes on independents, although I'm a Democrat, but, you know, hear what they got to say, hear what they got to say. And another thing I want to say is there is a myth that public housing residents, NYCHA residents, do not vote. And and people look at the stats throughout the elections. Like, you know, every election, primary votership is not the same as the general.
Everybody, sure.
But because I can't, as a campaign, when I campaigned as a candidate, I didn't look at it as some other candidates do and have done, because I've known candidates from the past too, and I know the philosophy. So say if Mike Jones is a registered voter, but he hasn't voted in 10 years, they're not even coming, some of them are not even coming at your door, but they're targeting the normal voters. But for me, I still want to come to your door.
Right.
Even though you ain't voting in 10 years, I want to knock at your door. I want to leave some literature door because it might be something in there in my literature. It might be something that I could say to invigorate you to want to come out and vote for me or get back into the process of voting.
Sure.
So for me as a candidate, when I was one, I'm not leaving no rock unturned. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's crazy not to put they'll send the mailers out, the ones that got the money. Like everybody will get something in the mail that's registered, but they're not focusing on those actual doors because they haven't voted in a while.
Right.
You don't know what it is.
Right.
And they might not they gave up on government. So it's up to the candidate to, and I've gotten that, I've gotten people that I'm not voting anymore and they wind up voting and they said, I got pictures, I voted for you.
Right.
And this is a person that didn't vote in years, so we can restore government by running, by not being compromised, by watching the language of the candidates. Even if you're a NYCHA resident and you're running for office, and you're using some type of language to say we have to meet in the middle when it comes to privatization. No, we don't.
Right. No,
we don't.
Yeah, right. There's no middle ground.
There's no middle ground. You either for it or you against it.
That's it.
So, and you have to listen to the language of these candidates, because someone like that can be easily swayed by donations, by offers, and all of that. So
I can tell you how the language. I mean, I read again. I hate to pick on the mayor, but you read what him and others say. Well, they say, well, we got to go for the blueprint because the money's not coming from Washington, and then people shouldn't live in this condition, and so we need to really help the residents, and so we got to go get this money, from the private sector, because what else are we going to do? And that's a terrible narrative. First of all, the federal government should be funding it, and we should be, and I know it's tough to be living in tough conditions, and you want repairs, but we got to think, long term. The short term is they come in here, do some little work in your apartment. Patchwork, and then I guarantee you, within 2 years, you're going to be back. And if it takes 2 years, in 6 months, you'll probably be back, because we're hearing that. The mold comes back, the lead comes back, the appliances broke down, everything that you had before, the problems are there again. But now you're at the risk of trusting people who receive already millions of dollars. Carol Maloney tells us. Chuck Schumer came on the show and couldn't tell us where the money goes. Right. We've had everybody tell us it just goes.
I asked the federal monitor
at
the city law breakfast.
He don't know where it goes.
It's on video. He said they don't trust them.
So how are they going to then get billions of dollars, from the private sector who is in this to make money? Let's be clear.
And fix our homes.
Right. There's no private developer sitting up there saying, you know what, I all of a sudden woke up today and I care about the residents in NYCHA. That's not what they did. They say, you know what, we took all the rest of the land, we built all around it, so now we got to go get this land, because this is valuable land, and we need y'all to get out.
Yeah, and they care about all their taxes and things. That's all they care about, and their generational wealth.
Right.
That's what they care about. They don't care about us. Right. And we have to keep in mind that the city, state, and the federal government funds public housing. So we should be getting all three full capacity of streams of funding. And when we speak of the federal government, we can pay money. There's money sent, billions of dollars for war, for defense. Right. They can let loose some of that and give us some of that. You know what I mean? Because we only need at this time is about $40 billion. And then it might be a little less than that, because we have to keep in mind, anytime a development is privatized under the RAD and stuff, it's no longer part of the real portfolio. So they're not responsible for it financially. So the numbers should be dropping a little bit. Right. So, come on. We have the money. Right. We have the money. Right. If they wanted to really fix it up, and we have to be clear, it's because of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color the majority of them are living in public housing. Right. And if there were different faces in public housing, we wouldn't be living in these conditions. That's just straight up and down. Public housing was segregated. There's still forms of segregation in our education system now. 100%. So when you look at that and you look at funding, and I know there's people, when I'm going into the schools, like there's some people that don't believe in the charter schools, and there's some people that, don't prefer the charter schools over the public schools, and education to me, and I know I shifted, but it's still because of the discrimination, because of the segregation, we have to, as people of color, we want to get our kids in the best school.
Right.
You know, I remember growing up, there were people that were sending their kids to Catholic school, and they weren't even Catholic.
Right.
They were, they were Baptists and Methodists,
Right.
of the Protestant religion, but they were sending their kids, and they were learning the Catholic faith. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they were looking for their kid to have a better education.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So what's different than sending them there than to the charter school?
Right.
So we all need to just, look at it. It's a parent's decision, and our public schools need to be better, but it all comes back down to funding.
Right.
The cuts, the city, state, and federal government, how they're cutting. I mean, look at all the money from lottery and stuff, right?
Sure.
The gambling. It's supposed to be a percentage of those funding is supposed to go to education. What education? Is it higher? Is it
Right.
where's it going? Because
Right.
all the money people spending, we don't see no money going
result.
into. Yeah, we seeing cuts.
Right.
We're seeing cuts in education, but we're seeing excess funding for defense. We're seeing excess funding for police. And what about the people? There's organizations that need it, and we need it in mental health. We need it in the medical. We need it in TAP and Pell, and
Sure.
all of these other things to help everybody survive and thrive. We're not getting that.
Right.
So
It's so funny how they say in the comments, take away some NYPD and ACS.
Well, yeah, and I saw. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
And they
but-
said the mayor's giving educational funding to NYPD.
that's Kim. Yeah.
Right.
I don't
right.
like. They don't like it.
Said I did research. 23 departments cut some of that. Yeah. Bad.
And I don't know the
Hey,
number.
Kim.
Yeah, there's I know they're looking to build Grand Central Station, I believe,
Okay.
right? And so I think it's I forgot the millions of dollars they putting into that, and then they're gonna build 10 high-rise developments in addition to this. So that's where the developer makes his money. He's
yeah.
gonna make money on the high-rise, get tax incentives. So what they're really saying is commuters, and I get it, you should have a nice world-class, traveling hub. But is that more important than somebody having a decent place to live? I'd rather people be uncomfortable riding Grand Central Station than somebody being uncomfortable in their house,
Right.
and their apartment's falling down, they got rats and roaches. So it's a matter of where the priorities are, and where you get your money from. If you're an elected official, often is where your priorities are.
Talk about it, Stan.
These folks.
What you saying, Stan?
I said where you get your money from. A lot of them are well funded, man. I saw a documentary of James Davis, who was murdered in City Hall many years ago. I just happened to watch his documentary yesterday, and he was the city council for Crown Heights, and you see that type of leadership, as opposed to kind of leadership we have right now. It was startling, actually watching it. I'm like, the politicians don't sound nothing like this. I saw footage of him in Crown Heights and, with the, stop the violence and the gun violence, but, just the genuineness and the love, that you could see for him and that the people that he had for the people.
Yeah.
And I look at politicians today, I don't see that. First of all, you don't see him in the community like that. You see him, again, when it's time to vote, and you don't see him again. That's why we get the kind of politics we have. And it's just unfortunate, that they're not, in my opinion, genuine. Look at Jamani, right? We thought Jamani was going to go in there and be Mr. Organizer. He was a community organizer, right? And he said he would be a community organizer in an elected position, But for those of us who are community organizers, we were out in the field. We didn't see him that much, right? So. Why what happens to the chains, or why do they change, or what happens after you take that oath? Somebody like James Davis, that's the real deal. A lot of these cats we have in office now, not at all, not so much.
I remember that killing. I was working, I believe, in an operational unit, and we had to send people down to City Hall. That was really tragic. Yeah.
And
It changed a lot of the get into
Right.
court systems,
Right.
got more stricter.
Right.
'Cause I used to be able to walk in with my NYPD ID
Right.
for a long period of time, but like the double take, but they still would let me in, but it wasn't the same.
Right,
It was
right.
a little hesitant and like, let me see that, let me see that ID. you know.
right. But that's the kind of leadership we need. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say I don't know if you talking about. I don't know. I don't think y'all ever gonna see a good mayor or anything like that. I don't know what y'all expect to see out of a country that was made off of, I can say, slaving people and
Oppressing
after
people.
slave, yeah, and
And
oppressing
oppressing
people. I
people.
mean, they still do it to this day on.
Yep.
I mean, I can say like an owner for a company, for an example, right? They got for firing someone, you got the right to fire someone for any or no reason at all, for an example, right? I mean, big bosses. I mean, people who have money or who's out there, like I could say, like a Donald Trump, right? They could fire anybody for no reason. They can be heartless. And to be honest, a lot of people that made it certain places like that, my opinion, seemed like they was kind of heartless. I mean, callous at some point in their life to get them where they at. And what's his name? Eric, the Eric guy, some guy. That's why I call him the Eric guy. Cause I know I got a few. I don't be outside how I used to when I was younger, but I know that he's starting the stop and frisk thing. For an example, that's what they say, that he's trying to stop the start and frisk, the stop and frisk. If people not comfortable in their house the way they is because of how they live in situations, of course they're gonna want to be outside. But if he's stopping to stop, if he's starting to stop and frisk the way people are saying it, they're gonna be outside more. And if they're outside, they're going to see more police, and more police going to see a bunch of young kids that's between the ages of, I can say, 14 to 24 years old.
Right.
And
They're black.
They're going to want to pick on them.
Yeah.
Right.
And not only that, now he's trying to grow. They say he's trying to grow, some marijuana on top of nitro buildings.
Wow. I think I haven't heard. Wow, that's okay.
It's on Pix 11. I got Pix 11 on
Okay.
Instagram. So
Okay.
it's on Pix 11 News. And
What's the
in fact,
benefits for the nitro?
Right. So where that money going
Yeah.
to?
I don't know. I mean, I want to know what they think is going to happen when they get that on
I don't
top.
think that's a good idea, personally. That doesn't sound good to me.
Listen, it's going to be raining bodies, or if it's not raining bodies, it's going to be a bunch of police officers around.
Right.
That's just going to have a reason to keep their eye on other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Sit there, start bothering
Yeah, we
people.
don't need marijuana on top of our roof.
No, I think that would be ridiculous at this point.
And I couldn't even ask this. I tried to ask the officer a question. I forgot I was going to ask him, but once he told me that he believed, and he was with some, I guess it was a part of some female officer. He said that most police, like 99% of police officers are good. I'm like, what? Like, where do you think? I can't even have a conversation with you if you usually think that.
Well, I come from law enforcement.
I'm not
I can't
saying
even
that.
give a
I'm not
factor.
saying that.
No,
All of
I'm
them.
saying I can't give a number, but it's a nice amount that are good. But one of the problems is, and please go back to your conversation. One of the problems is the culture of the department. So say you and I come on, and I'm gonna use myself. I'm gonna make myself the bad person. You and I come on. We're both good people, but I get compromised, but you don't. You still stay, and then you become a problem. Nobody wants to work with you. Nobody wants to back you. And if you talk, you're labeled a rat. You know what I'm saying? You get transferred. I mean, they have a serious retaliatory practice in NYPD. For somebody that was sexually harassed, I was transferred with a complaint in place, which was never supposed to happen.
Wow.
So they're really into retaliating. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So I've met some good people, but then again, I don't know what they did on their rides.
Right.
I don't know what they did in their arrest. I don't know
Right.
if they put the cuffs too tight or something like that. I got to meet, and then I got to meet some really not so cool people. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think 99% is a high number. I wouldn't say a number, but I definitely wouldn't say 99%. No.
I know it's not 99%. I mean, I have an uncle that's a cop.
Yeah.
He ain't a bad guy. He a good guy. I mean, I think he a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Then they have bad days, right? But that's still no excuse.
Right.
No excuse to use your power to abuse people. Go ahead.
I mean, but like every other job, they are doing trying to make a dollar, and to me, I can't sit here and just give up my morals for just trying to make a dollar. I could just go find another job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they don't want to lose their job. They want to do anything
Right.
they want to have to do to keep their job. I mean, but then look at another job, and if somebody do something that's wrong, they be like, "Oh, you get another job." I mean, so can you.
Right.
You don't sit here and try to lose your job. I mean, they seem like even when if it's an officer that's in trouble, like the officers that was, they had a rifle, a sniper that was shooting at some folks. I think he probably killed about 2 to 7 officers. I don't know the exact number, but police will come quick for another officer before they will come for a normal civilian. I mean, you even have laws that state that if you hit a officer or MTA or even housing, you know, that you would get up to like 20 years in prison.
Felony. It's felony.
And I'm like, that they more important than
7
me.
years, I mean, felony,
They more important than me. Somebody could just come over there and slap the mess out of me, and they do a year, and then they go slap you, and you get 20 years. Or if you get hurt, you got the whole precinct coming to help you. But I got people over here chasing me down the block, and I don't even hear from you until after I'm beat up.
Right.
It's, I mean, I don't think that they actually. Once again, they just about a normal person that could be just doing things for money, trying to stack a dollar and go home and probably doing everything wrong themselves.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of them been exposed in the past, and a lot of them have gotten in trouble, dirty 30 and so forth. One of the biggest myths for me with law enforcement, not just NYPD, but law enforcement period, is having people of color join the force, and it's going to make a difference. And we've seen that. We've seen them come on, but we don't see the difference. Right. So that's just a myth, because they gotta come. They come on, and some of them do the right thing, but I can't say if you got your partner and your partner know you're going to tell on them, so your partner doesn't trust you. That means your partner's not going to back you.
Right.
If it's some kind of incident, and that's scary for people. But it's the culture. The culture has to be dismantled.
Right.
And one of the things is you have to, when it's something that's so bad and broken, you have to dismantle it. You have to dismantle it and dissolve it and bring it back up. And we have seen police stations, and I think it was in Jersey, different places that have been just wiped out and then restructured, and they're fine now. You see what I'm saying? Because you're getting rid of the union head, you're rehiring back, but you're rehiring back the ones with the clean records. You're not rehiring back the ones with all these blemishes and all these charges and specs, meaning they had got jammed up and they had to go to court with in department court. Call it the kangaroo court. But yeah, so and then is the hiring new people. So you're doing a better job and bringing in law enforcement, and that'll make a difference. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, I believe in defund, disarm, disband. Because you defund, they're still going to get their paychecks. They're still going to get their money. They're still going to be able to get overtime when there's a necessary overtime. But that a lot of waste sitting up, called RDO overtime, going to training, that's a regular day off, going to training on your RDO. And I know some people probably will watch and be angry as they can be, but you're bringing people in for RDO overtime to go to a training when you can have them come on their day that they're working. Why are we paying these tax dollars for Stan to come in and do this training on his day off and get a full check and travel time sometimes?
Yeah.
And then the defund, disband, tear it down. As I said, I discussed that. Disarm. Yeah, you go over to Roosevelt Island. They have public safety. They don't have crazy crime, and if they do have crime, then of course I think it's some Queens that come over. But they handle the things, you know what I'm saying? And then when you think of the shootings, look at the Jalen, I forgot his last name, the young kid that was shot over 100 times, but 60 bullets went in him. Does that make sense?
Wow.
No, they need to be disarmed. If you're shooting, that's not even a hunt. That was just a firing range, literally on a young man, a young black man. So when we look at some of the things, and then we look at his situation, and then the kid that did the killing, he was brought in unscathed, right?
Yeah.
So there's disparities, and there's the way they treat people. So yeah, so all of them, no.
You talking about the white terrorists?
Right.
The white,
that was plucking them off on July 4th and planted and everything. So when you look at these disparities that really exist, and then it works in other countries, that they don't have guns. They don't have the problem with the people having the guns. They don't have the problem with the cops killing the people, and the crime is not crazy. And so it can work. And I believe we're just so militarized, and we're so stuck from the history. And people say it's not. It does come from the slave patrol. That cycle. That's. I'm trying to get the
it's
psyche
a
out
mentality.
of it.
It's a and
It's
from
been
slavery, and also from the way the country was built. You know, we built it by force. You know, by taking it from people and taking land from this one and that and another. And it was all about gunpowder and force.
Don't say
so,
we. You gotta say
also,
they.
well, I say, well, I would say they. I would say, well, we call it the white folks. So I'm talking about the white folks and white supremacy and all of that that goes along with it. You know, there's a mentality in this country. Like I read where I think a guy in China got murdered, unfortunately, assassinated. You know, but in that country, you really can't have a gun. You know what I mean? The guy manufactured and made a gun. You know, but you can't have guns. You know, so for us to be this country to be so ingrained in it, you know, and the guns, money's in Smith and Wesson and people like that make billions, and they give money to these politicians. You know, you have the NRA and such that are so powerful. You know that these politicians they
won't vote it down. They won't vote against it.
Well, it's because they don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to lie. I don't blame them with the carrying the guns. I mean, it is some dangerous people out here that you're going to want to make sure you have that.
Well, carrying a gun is one thing, but owning an AR-15 is just totally unnecessary.
Right.
You know, that's a weapon of destruction. That's a weapon of war, and that shouldn't be. You know,
under no circumstance.
Right? No,
nobody in this country should have no access to have a gun like that.
You want to go hunt and use a shotgun and go out there and hunt your animals if you're a hunter, but you don't need an AR-15. And the other part about it is I don't understand why more law enforcement does not get and push back against the gun violence, because the actual average, I don't know, maybe not average, but there's a percentage of people that are committing crimes that have more weaponry than they do.
Well, that's about to say
and
that.
That's pathetic.
Right. If I'm a cop and I'm showing up and this guy got
an AR-15,
and he's knocking 10 cops off.
What state was
in 15 seconds or 2 seconds or something like that.
What state was that when the guy knew that the guy had the weaponry and he didn't go in?
Yeah,
they was going off on him, and I'm like, well, who? Duh. Like he knew if he walked in, that was probably death for him. You know what I mean?
And I'm not gonna lie, that's what I was gonna say when you said that they shouldn't have war weapons. I was gonna say, but what about if they run into that guy that had that assault rifle shooting the police officers from the roof?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they're gonna wish they had a war weapon then.
Well, is that the one is that Texas you're talking about?
I think it was.
That's when. Okay, so that's another problem I had with how they handled that, because that Texas incident years ago, and this is what highlighted and brought me to the move bombing.
No, this was recent. I don't know. It was a different state.
Okay, because I'm thinking about back there a couple of years. Okay, so a couple of years ago with the Texas incident, and they sent a robot in to blow up the guy. That was crazy.
Yeah.
There was no due process. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what he was doing was right. No, but that's not due process. That's
and
not
he was on the roof and he was telling them that my people gonna know what I did.
I don't know,
because I think they did a robot to go into this guy.
Well, this one was in I believe this was in Texas, and a couple of cops did get killed, but they sent a robot in, and then I'm like bugging out, and one of my friends, an OG, was like, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?" And then he reminded me of Move. How they bombed the house in Philadelphia and killed all the people of Africa. You know, their last name was Africa. Ramon, I think it was. I don't want to mess up her name. Ramona. Like it was like 2 survivors. Kids died and everything. Like, and they destroyed the community.
Yeah.
And nothing was done. Nobody paid nothing. And they locked the lady up. They locked the 2 survivors up. Move bombing, MOVE in the 1980s. I don't know if it was 85, but Google that if you don't know about the destruction of how this country can do, especially of people of color.
Right.
Yep. MOVE bombing, horrible.
And I would just say, and I know Eric won on that, in terms of going against defund the police and all the rest of that. But the best way to cure crime is lift people out of the conditions they live in. Yeah. So people are living in better conditions and with more mental health. You got a lot of folks who are, mentally impaired somewhat, and not getting treatment. So
education,
education. All of these things lead to the crime. So you could put 1 million cops on the street. That in and of itself is not going to solve. Right, you're not going to really diminish anything.
But let's understand. profit in poverty.
Well, that's right. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Who profits? If the person's on drugs or okay, so they're profiting. The welfare system is
Absolutely
profiting because they're hiring people. The police are profiting for locking the people up. The
Yeah.
prisons are profiting. You know, I mean, there's profit in poverty, and
Yeah.
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
That's right.
Being poverty stricken is not a crime. It's criminal that you live in a country that's allowing people to live in poverty.
Right.
That's the criminality of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it makes no sense. But everybody's making money off of that person that's poverty stricken.
Right.
They come to the public assistance. They sit in front of social workers. You know, they did this, the medical, Medicaid. I mean, everybody's
Right.
turning on the person, and the person still remains in poverty.
Right.
I was watching
That's
this
a crime.
video. I was watching this video and it was talking about rulers, how to be a ruler.
Okay.
And it's saying that rulers don't make money; they got people that make money for them, and also they got other people to distribute the money to them for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have to have these keys, one to enforce law, one to defend the country, or one to it's something else. It's one more as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they were saying they had the many keys they have to sit there and they have to supply for them. They have to,
Right.
If they don't give them what they need, like of course everybody want money nowadays. If you don't give them money, they're gonna go to somebody else, and also you have to probably pay more to those who's ready to go to the enemy or those that's on the enemy side, and you have to get them on yours. You have to probably
Right.
pay them more, and the more money you put into the community, less money you will have for your keys.
Wow.
Well, that's exactly how it goes, Mike. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you sit there and if you put more money into the community, the less money you have for your keys, and the more money you have for your keys, the less money you will see going into the community.
Right.
So they probably, of course, they paying for the military, of course, they pay for their weaponry, because anybody could come into this country. This country was the most grimiest country to me that ever happened in history. How they came. So anybody will come into this country, they don't want that to happen. So all that money's going to them and the military, of course, to enforce all these laws to make sure that everybody inside the country is abiding by the laws.
Right.
They got to apply, and they have to make sure that law enforcement is having a budget and is fit.
Right.
And they have to make sure that everybody on their team is good. And once everybody on their team is good, then the rest of the money can blow out. And I'm pretty sure that's how everything's being done.
Yeah, and to bring it back home to our NYCHA residents, the poverty of NYCHA residents is a business. Yeah, and that's really when you get down to what's behind the blueprint, RAD, and all of these privatization plans. It's a profit off of the poverty and pain of those living in NYCHA. So I mean, it's not too hard to see. And I just want all NYCHA residents, in this fight, and not just NYCHA residents, like Saundrea said, I don't live in NYCHA anymore. But if NYCHA goes, it's going to impact me. It's going to impact everybody. Because there will be no more affordable housing in New York City at all. And this is where New York is going. So whether you live in NYCHA, whether you have family live in NYCHA, whether whatever it is, you should be as a concerned citizen of New York. You should be as invested in this fight as the residents who live in NYCHA. Because that's our last stand. Once that goes, the developers have pretty much taken over the entire city at that point. And then what else is left? And you're not going to be able to rent here no more. You're not going to be able to buy no house here. Let's not talk about the house prices. So you're going to be forced to leave. And that's kind of, in my mind, what they want. It's a tale of two cities, except we're going to be eliminated. There's going to be one city, and it's not going to have nothing to do with us.
Yeah. Before we shut down, I want to bring up one more topic. I know we might have went a little bit over. I don't know who all has cable and watching. I think it's on, please correct me if I'm wrong, it might be it's on Showtime, Supreme Team.
I saw I just had to come on and I saw the ad.
It's on. So I watched the first episode and I finished watching. I was livid because the mayor was on it.
The mayor who?
The mayor was in the documentary.
Mayor?
Don't care what kind of, if he was down, if it was in his time, I just didn't want to see him on there. I think he shouldn't have just been on there. And he was on there and it said Mayor of New York. So I didn't like that. I don't know if he was part of it or anything, but shout out to Corey Pegas. I hope I'm saying his name right. He was on it too, and I was so happy because I kept seeing the mayor. And then when I see, I was like, yes, that's who should, he should have been a part of that. But he also was part of, the gang at that time, and but he was also a retired member of service. He retired as a high-ranking officer, so he did turn his life around. His book is called Once a Cop. What is it? The Street, the Law. Come on, open back up. The Street. Once a Cop, The Street, the Law, Two Worlds, One Man. So this is Amazon. It's been out.
Right.
It's been out. I don't know if y'all can see it. Am I showing it?
I don't know.
How can I show it? If people want to, because he was part of, selling drugs for them and stuff. But for me, put it back.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. But for me, I bought the book. I didn't read it yet. I bought it a while back, but I didn't read it. I've been so busy with different things, but I definitely got to dig into it. I skimmed through it. I didn't get to sit down and really ingest it. But I was like, why you have the mayor in this? Like, did he beg to be in it? Like, what was your purpose? Even if you grew up in that time and some of the players, because Nas
Right.
is one of the executive producers. LL was on it talking and stuff. But just, and they're from Queens, so, but just to have the mayor in it, and like this man, Corey Pegas, has some validity. Like he has the experience and stuff like that. But it's something to check out, though. It's something to check out.
That's the crack era, right? So I definitely want to look back on that. That was for those who don't know, that was a terrible time in New York, and it sometimes feels like we're going back to some of that now to some extent, but yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out tonight.
Check it out, yeah. And if you got the man, you can probably play catch up. I'm going to try to watch another couple of episodes. I just can't really binge watch because I'm so busy, but I did catch the first episode and I was like, why is the man? I'm like, and then when I was like, yeah, now he's supposed to be in it because it gives some authenticity.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. But, all right. That was a nice plug. For watch the show.
They paying you. They should be paying you.
No. I mean, but it's good to give out the information so people, because there's always I like to I will watch a lot of YouTube and I like to watch documentaries. I think those are like some of the best shows, and for Showtime to take that and do it, especially at a time when 50's doing like BMF and stuff like that. But that's a series he's doing, and this is a docu-series, so it's a little different. Like, and it's still good because, those are the times of our lives in the past that, we may, it was rough.
Yeah.
But it was also, you've seen some really flamboyant, people of color that was making it, although it wasn't in a great way to make it, but to each his own. But so that's that. Any final remarks, Stan?
Well, I just say I grew up in Lafayette Gardens, and we had our own stories, and of drug lords and such. And it was quite a time. It was definitely quite a time. And for those that survived that era, thank God, because it wasn't easy. But I guess to follow up, I'm excited about where we're going as a platform. I know that these are troubling times for NYCHA residents. And wondering about the privatization. Are we going to win this fight? I know we're going to win, because we have people power, and I believe that people power will trump profit all the time. And then we're gonna band together and build a movement, development by development, which is why we call this one night. Right, so we can stop it. It's going to take.
We stopped the infill.
Right.
From 2015 to 2019, we stopped it because we stayed organized and we continued to fight, and that's what you have to do. Just continue to fight. Don't get defeated. They're gonna wear you down, but we weathered that storm, and we won our fight for 4 years.
And we're gonna continue. We're gonna win all these fights. We're gonna win, and know that it is a fight for your life and your apartment, your livelihood, and your ability to exist in New York City.
Yeah, we can stop the blueprint too, although it was signed off and everything.
Right.
Anything could change,
right?
Because it takes 2 years to put that in place.
So we gotta rise up and make our voices heard, and really make these people pay attention to our story as we tell it for ourselves. So that's what we're gonna do here.
And everybody, you already know. You gotta share, like, and follow us on YouTube as well. It's One Nature TV, O-N-E, Nature TV.
Yep.
You can just look us up and make sure you follow and share.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Yeah, thank you for viewing. We appreciate it. This was our part 2 of our dialogue. We may not be in next week due to some rebuilding of the studio. But if not, Ben watch and we'll let you know. But then if not, we'll be back the following week. So, all right. But we appreciate you all. One night to one people. We about 1 4. Come on, give us that. Free up.